school. She's been asked to give you all a special presentation on a topic that will relate to next year's Scholars Cup theme of the world within and psychology. Izzy, would you like to come forward and share with us your presentation? Yes.
Me?
Let me turn down the lights if anyone knows how to go to the lights.
Alright, so last year in English class, I was sitting there when my teacher was talking about coincidence. And I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to go into Google, find the definition of coincidence, and beat him to it, and I'll give him the definition before he gives it to the class. So when I went into Google and I searched coincidence, I came across this hit result, and it said something about this word called synchronicity. So I decided to open it, and I started reading through it, and I said to myself, this looks really, really complicated. It's interesting, but I just don't have the time to understand it right now. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and focus on my work. Problem is, my browser froze, and it didn't let me close the page. And I was like, this is really interesting. I am going to do a project on this. I'm going to look into this because this can't be by chance. There has to be meaning behind this. So here I am, 1 year later, and this is my presentation on synchronicity. So let me first begin by defining the term. What is synchronicity? Now, synchronicity is two unrelated events, one internal and one external, which occur at the same time and this will have significant meaning to the person experiencing them. The internal event is a feeling, a realization, a thought, which happens at the same time as an external event, being something that happens in the real world, a cup dropping, or something that you see that is actually physical. What's special about these events is that they're unrelated. They have no correlation. There is no cause or effect between them. One does not cause the other, and vice versa. Synchronicity can also be defined as a meaningful coincidence, which I'll go into in a bit. Let me just talk about who it can happen to, how, and when it happens. It can happen to anybody. And how and when it happens? Well, it happens when your emotions are heightened, when you are feeling something not normal, and when you're really aware of what is going on. So let me go back to a meaningful coincidence. Now, Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist, was the one who discovered the concept. He was born on July 26, 1875, and died on June 6, 1961. He was also the founder of analytical psychology. Now, what was really interesting was that in one of his sessions with a patient was telling him about a dream that she had in which she had been given an expensive piece of jewelry that resembled a golden scarab beetle. Now, the problem with this patient was that she was experiencing some sort of emotional block in her therapy. She wasn't able to get past that, and her therapy wasn't able to proceed. And just as she was telling Dr. Jung about this dream, he heard a tapping noise on the window. He turned around, and what he saw on the window was the nearest analogy to a golden scarab beetle. He saw a scarabine beetle, which resembles a golden scarab beetle. So what he did is he went and he handed the patient the beetle, and as he handed it to her, she said, "Wow, I can think again. The block is gone." What happened is that beetle was actually a classic. It is the beetle, the golden scarab beetle is a classic symbol of rebirth. And those two events had the inner dream that she'd experienced and that beetle actually appearing had meaning to her and allowed her to break that mental block and let the therapy continue. Now, another example of synchronicity would be a glass dropping and shattering at the same second someone dies. I'll go into that in a bit as well. So, such occurrences have no logical explanation or physical cause. Time and space become relative. Psyche and matter have merged, inner and outer life coincided, not in cause and effect, but a falling together in time, simultaneity. The problem with synchronicity is that it can't be scientifically proven. It's an event. There are events which are meaningful to the individual that is experiencing them, and therefore stand in a relationship of complementarity to the statistical method of science. When we observe something statistically, we eliminate the synchronicity phenomenon, and when we establish synchronicity, we must abandon the statistical method. So I went ahead and interviewed a few professional psychologists and asked them, you know, this isn't scientifically proven. What do you make of this? Does that bother you? And I got this really interesting response from a Jungian analyst called Jacques Boumont. He said to me, "I'm a practical man. When things are efficient, it's good enough. If I can't prove them, so what? People don't ask at the end of an analysis for a certificate that everything has been proven. They themselves have changed deeply, and that is the better proof." So I said to myself, that's really interesting that people can let something prove, can let their feelings and experiences prove something that can't be scientifically proven. Now, I know a lot of you are sitting there thinking to yourselves, two things that happened at the same time. Isn't that coincidence? So let me go ahead and talk about coincidence for a bit. Coincidence is defined as an occasion when two or more similar things happen at the same time, especially in a way that is unlikely and surprising. Synchronicity is when two things happen at the same time, but one of those things is an inner feeling, a thought, a realization, and the other one is a physical event. The emphasis lies on the word meaningful. If an aircraft crashes before my eyes as I'm blowing my nose, this is a coincidence of events that has no meaning. It's a simple chance occurrence of a kind that happens all the time. But if I bought a blue frock and by mistake the shop delivered a black frock on the day one of my close relatives died, this would be a meaningful coincidence. They're not causally related, but are connected by the symbolic meaning that the European society gives to the color black. So, as you can see, the simultaneity of the events brings meaning to the individual. Now, this may seem clear, but I found that as I looked into it further, I got more confused. And so I asked myself, what makes something synchronicity? Yes, I kind of know what it is, but what are the boundaries? Where do the boundaries lie? What are the key factors that distinguish synchronicity from other events? And I couldn't find an answer to this, so I started reading some other works that weren't written by Jung, but that were written by other psychologists, psychiatrists who had been analyzing Jung's work. And I came across the following quote. Michael Fordham said, "Jung's examples do not always make it evident in what his idea of meaning consists." So I found this really interesting, and so I asked myself, what is meaningful? What does meaningful mean? Jung describes synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence. There has to be a reason behind that. So what I did is I opened the book that I was reading and turned back to the index and searched for the word meaningful. It wasn't in there. I opened another book that I had by Jung and turned back to the glossary, looked for the term meaningful. It wasn't there. So I went online and looked for a glossary of Jungian terms and looked for the word meaningful. It wasn't there. And so I said to myself, no, this can't, there has to be some sort of definition. So I'm going to go ahead and Google it, because if there's an answer, Google will give me the answer. So I searched meaningful definition by Jung. I got 0 results. Now, this to me is very interesting. How can someone define something as a meaningful coincidence when the term meaningful itself has not been defined? But perhaps that's the beauty in it, that it's open to individual interpretation, and that people can make the word meaningful mean whatever they want it to be. So this led to 2 main questions that arose in my head. One of them being, what does synchronicity actually mean to individuals and how does it affect them? The other one being, how do I define it? And these 2 questions form the basis of the question that I had come up with at the beginning of my study, which intimidated me and I had no idea how to answer. And this question was, how is synchronicity interlaced into today's individualistic psychological mindset? So, let me first start with how I define it. I seem to have adopted Jung's definition of synchronicity, meaning that, to me, it's 2 events that happen, one inner, one outer, which give meaning to the person experiencing them. They don't have to be life-changing events, they don't have to be big, but they need to help you in some decision-making process or something of the sort. So when I asked other people what it meant to them, a lot of people generally said to me, it's not a big life-changing event. It's not something that happens to you which changes the course of your life or completely puts you in another path or in another direction. It's something that happens in your everyday life that helps you, even if it's just a bit. And there's generally an element of surprise incorporated into it. Just like with coincidence, you can't look for synchronicity because the minute that you look for it, it's no longer true synchronicity. So you have to be surprised by it, and if it's real, it will surprise you. Now, Mr. Jacques Duhamel also said to me, if you're not conscious of what is happening inside of you, there is no synchronicity. This to me is very true, because synchronicity is one feeling, one thought, and if you can't grasp what that thought is, there's no way that you can connect it to the outer event and draw meaning. Another thing that I came across was something really interesting, the practical usage of synchronicity. Now there's this book, an ancient Chinese book called the I Ching, which is commonly known as the Book of Transformation. The origins trace back to 2 or 3 millennia before Christ. What you do with this book is you have sticks and you throw the sticks and you ask yourself a question. And after you've thrown the sticks, after they've landed in the formation, you open the book and look for the symbol that the sticks have landed in and read out the description. And this will give you an answer to your question. Now, some may think that this is provoking synchronicity of the sort, provoking the coincidence, but it really isn't. There is no relationship between the throwing of the sticks and the question you ask. There is no meaning behind that. Rather, the relation exists because you give it significance. Now, another thing that I came across was that there were many misinterpretations of synchronicity. People would say to me, oh my God, Isabel, I was thinking of a bird, and then I looked out my window and I saw a bird in the sky. Wow, I'm like a psychic. This is synchronicity, this is really cool. I was like, yeah, maybe, but then again, maybe not. So let me show you a quick video. This is a video of my brother. He had just come home from the supermarket one day, and he was really excited. He was like, oh my God, something happened to me today. Can't wait to tell you about it. I was like, okay, let me get my camera. I'll film you. So this is what he told me. Devin, what happened when you got back to the shop? What happened?
Alright, this is synchronicity at its best, alright? So I was walking through the mall, just like, oh, what do I need to buy now? And I'm like thinking, oh, I need to buy milk. I look to the left, what's in front of me? Milk. I get the milk, right? And then I'm walking through again, and I'm just humming my favorite song. I love you like a love song, baby, right? And I'm humming this song, right? And then I walk to one side of the mall where there are loudspeakers, and I hear the exact same song. I love you like a love song, baby, right? And I'm just like, whoa. Alright, this is something to do with Isabel's story, right? And so I walk through, go to the checkout center, and I go to one checkout center. It's completely empty. There's only one lady there. I put my stuff out, and she tells me something in French. No, c'est pas, oui, no. And I'm like, alright. Somebody, English please. And they say, this line's closed. So I go to the next one. Oh, a million people in that line. Just completely like a snake, but with lots of fruit and tomatoes on it. It's horrible. And so I was waiting in that line, and I was suddenly thinking, oh my God, if that line was open, I would be done much easier. And guess what? What? Synchronicity? The line opened. Boom. Done with my shopping like that.
So, I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this is synchronicity? What happened to my brother? Turn to the person next to you. What do you guys think?
Something on the inside, something on the outside. It's more like a coincidence. Something in the
So, I decided. I said to myself, synchronicity really is individual. What better way
and I asked him.
All right, Stefan. So I'm going to tell you my definition of synchronicity, and then I want you to tell me if what happened in the shopping mall a couple of weeks ago is still synchronicity to you, as in if you think it matches my definition of synchronicity, okay? Okay, so synchronicity is two things that happen at the same time. One of them is an internal event, like a feeling, a thought, a realization, and the other one is an external event, like a physical event. But these two events aren't related, and they have specific meaning to you, as in you draw something meaningful out from these two events. What do you think?
Alright, well, all of my events at the shopping mall, they all happened at the same time. For example, I was thinking them, and then as I was singing my song in my head, I walked past a section of the mall, and there was these speakers playing the song in my head, but none of them had really any meaning to me, and I couldn't really connect with anything that has happened to me, with those events that have happened to me.
Okay, that's cool. So, do you still think there was synchronicity, I guess?
Well, it could have been, the way they were all linked together, it could have meant something, but the fact that it had no meaning to me could also be that it wasn't synchronicity.
Okay, alright, thank you, Stefan.
So after asking my brother, it turns out that no, what he had experienced was not synchronicity. There was no deeper meaning that he could draw out from what he had experienced. Now, how long did I spend? I spent at least several sleepless nights thinking of how to conclude a presentation like this, and I came up with nothing. But a couple of days ago, I said to myself, look, I'm running out of time. I need to come up with something. But I couldn't, and I got really, really frustrated, so I just slammed my hand against the keyboard, my computer keyboard. And what ended up happening is that my computer rewinded to the last tab that I had been on, which happened to be the World Scholars Cup page. Two phrases stood out on this page for me, one of them being the world in motion, and the other one, the world within. And I said to myself, how interesting is that? You know, synchronicity is one feeling, something that happens inside of you, something in the world within, which is paralleled by something that happens in the external world, the physical world, perhaps, as some of you may call it, the world in motion. And so, it made sense to me. I said to myself, that is my conclusion, that it's everywhere, and that you find it when you don't look for it. The fact that I had rewinded back to this page because I was so angry and so frustrated, and the fact that I was able to draw meaning from that and to come up with a conclusion. I ask you, fellow audience, is that synchronicity? Thank you.